Hi guys, welcome to my channel. It's Vesna here. Thank you so much for stopping by. For today's video, I am going to show you how I used all Dollar Tree items to create a three-tiered bin shelf. So all you need are these few supplies. So you need a welcome sign, one of these hangers from the Dollar Tree, and 3 vertical gift boxes. You can choose any kind of welcome or home sign or love sign, whatever you have on hand or whatever your Dollar Tree has on hand at this time. Same with the gift boxes. I happen to have Christmas ones, and the only reason I have them is because I got them in the clearance section at our Dollar Tree. They were 50% off. They are the smaller kind. We don't have bigger kinds, or at least I haven't seen them here in Canada, but maybe we do. So you'll need 3 of these boxes, 1 of these hangers, and a welcome sign if you wanted to make this all truly Dollar Tree.
I wound up getting rid of that Happy Easter sign as it didn't work.
So before we paint, we will need to prep these boxes. Now the boxes themselves need to be painted on the inside, so I thought a spray paint will be the easiest, and I'm just using a Rona brand white spray paint. It's the one that I had on hand. You could use anything. You could use acrylic paint if you wanted as well, or you could use a chalk spray paint or chalk paint, whichever. I just thought for the base coat, the white, just to get everything covered, it would be easiest if I did a spray paint, especially since I wanted the inside sprayed as well. So then we need to cut these boxes. So the boxes are roughly 6 inches long, and at about 2 inches, I'm just going to make a mark, and then I'm going to put a diagonal line from the very top to the 2-inch mark, and this will give me a measurement of where I need to cut for the opening of the box, because I do want them to have that kind of opening. And I do this on both sides for each of the boxes, and then I just use an X-Acto knife to cut these. You could use any tool that you prefer for cutting kind of cardboard type of stuff. I thought the X-Acto knife was the best way to go for me. But again, you use whatever you need to use. Just make sure you're careful with whichever tool you're using so you do not cut yourself. And then once I made the side marks, then I put a little mark at the front, and then I just drew a line right across so that I could make sure that I'm cutting evenly from side to side. And that's it. So like I said, I used my X-Acto knife and I cut them, and I did this for each of the boxes. I'll show you the one box and then I'll show you what they look like cut. So the boxes are cardboard. They are thicker cardboard, but you do want to make sure that you're not squeezing them too hard, that you flatten the box, or when you're cutting that you're not ripping off too much of the whatever that covering is, the picture. You could rip it all off if you wanted to. It'll just give an uneven look to the box, so you want to be careful. I did have a few spots where it kind of came off. I didn't bother fixing them with any putty or anything like that. Sometimes I do, but I did not bother this time, mainly because I did want that rustic enamel look to this piece. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I love the rustic look and I love the perfectly imperfect look. I am very much a fan of things not looking quite perfect, because that's the way life is, I think. Anyway, life is kind of throws you curveballs, and the most beautiful things are not often perfect. Even in nature, when you look at things, they're not always perfect. So I kind of bring this into my home. So once you cut this off, you want to sand it down. Any of the paper that's kind of sticking up, you want to sand down or cut it off just to get a nice smooth edge there so it doesn't look too papery and cut up. And then you're ready to paint. So I did not film myself spray painting these, but once I cut all 3 of them up, I wound up spray painting them in that white color, and then I need to do more touch-ups with them because that spray paint is quite shiny. So another thing, if you didn't want this step and you wanted kind of that matte finish, is you could use a chalked spray paint. They are a little bit pricier, so this way for me works better, but whatever you want is what you do, obviously. So anyway, here's what they look like all spray painted. And then what I did was I actually went ahead and then I needed to repaint them again. So what I was doing, I was adding some chalked linen white to the boxes, and this I did with just to kind of go over top of where the spray paint didn't quite get, where it didn't cover as much as I wanted to, and to get rid of, like I said, that shininess because it was just a little bit too shiny, which I knew it would be because the spray paint that I was using was not a matte finish spray paint. But it was easier for me to do it this way than to try and paint the whole piece, and then it would have been harder to do it this way. So this way I spray painted as much as I wanted to and could and had the time. And I also didn't want to soak them too much because they are cardboard, so you don't want to soak them so much that they kind of disintegrate or fall apart. So anyway, I went over top of all of them with the chalk linen white, and then once I did that, I went ahead and I sanded it down where there was pieces that were kind of sticking up, where they were just I imperfect, or where the paint kind of gunked up too much. And I also find by sanding down just gently, you're actually adding a nicer, smoother, but still matte finish to that chalk paint. I do that with furniture all the time, and it turns out really, really nice. Once I had them sanded down, I went ahead and I applied the enameling process or the look. So what I did was I actually used just black acrylic paint and just a thinner brush. I didn't use a fine tip brush. I don't have a lot of luck with those. I don't think I have very good quality ones, so they kind of aren't stiff enough, I guess, and then they kind of go all over the place. So I just used a little bit of a thicker brush, but thin enough that it did the trick. And I just applied it to the edges, like all around the edges and any corners and on the inside. And then I just put little nicks kind of all throughout the piece to give it the look of kind of like an aged, dinged up enamel. Love the rustic look. So these turned out really, really nicely. So if you're going to be using this for mail or anything that will have more traffic to it, I suggest you apply either one of the waxes, either an Annie Sloan wax or the Rust-Oleum protective glaze, or even Mod Podge to these just to give them a thicker coating and protective coating so that you don't chip any of the paint off by accident. But if you're going to be using it like myself just as a decorative piece, you don't need to do any of that. Once I have these made to perfection, as I like to think, I go ahead and I work on that hanger. So with this hanger, what you need to do is just use some really strong wire cutters. I think these ones weren't quite strong enough, but they did the trick. I just had to push really hard. And you're going to be cutting them into 3 sections. And then whatever piece is left over, you will be cutting that off. So I'll show you what I mean by that. As you can see, I was having a little bit of a hard time, but once I got it going, then I just kind of broke it off and cut off where I needed to. Try to do it as close as you can to the edge because it will be harder to remove a smaller piece than it is a bigger piece. You can always sand it down and kind of cut it down with some thinner shears or whatnot, or wire cutters, but try to get as close as you can to the edge, and then you remove these sides, and then you do repeat that for the whole hook or hanger. And then for the last piece that has the extra little hanging part, what you're going to do is just cut that off as well. And that one is a little bit thicker, so you're going to start the cut and then you can kind of wiggle it off, and then you just finish them off by sanding them. So once I completed cutting all of them and breaking them off, I went ahead and I added that whole enamel look to them like I did with the bins. If you're curious where I got this idea, I will send a shout out to another YouTuber that I actually saw on Facebook. She had posted this, that she created this. Hers was a Kirkland's dupe. So kind of similar to mine, some things were identical. She did not use all Dollar Tree products. I wanted mine to be a Dollar Tree strictly Dollar Tree product one, minus the paints and the wax, but she's called She's So Crafty D. If you haven't checked her out, check her out. She made a version of this bigger because I think you guys in the States, I think she is in the States, have bigger Dollar Tree boxes than we do here in Canada, but that's where my inspiration came from, and I just did my own twist to it. So anyway, I added the enameling with the black acrylic paint, and I had to fix some up with a hot glue gun because as I was kind of cutting those pieces that were hanging off, I broke some of the pieces. So once everything dried, I had to go ahead and I attach these hooks to the back of the box. I was going to use a combination of Weld Bond and hot glue, but then I just wound up switching to just the hot glue gun and just making sure that I added a lot of hot glue to it, and it should hold it for quite a long time. And I'm just adding the hooks to the box, and I'm making sure that I've marked off where I want the hooks to sit. This all depends on how you want yours to sit, but I measured off that I wanted them to sit. So I'm just putting a little dot to where I want this to sit, and it is 100 millimeters down, and then I'm leaving 15 millimeters from each side, and that's where I'm positioning. So I just put the 2 dots at that level, like I kind of do 3 dots altogether. You could even draw a light line if you wanted to, but this is the measurement that I wanted because of the kind of materials I was using. If you use something different, just kind of measure out how you want those baskets to sit. I do wind up adding these clips to hold the hooks onto the box while the hot glue is adhering them. And I repeat for all 3 boxes. And like I said, I did use the Weld Bond, but it wasn't doing the trick, so I wound up just using mostly hot glue. You could do a combination if you wanted to make sure that it has even a better hold. I just kind of gave up on the idea because I didn't think it was doing anything. And sometimes when I try to use a combination of the hot glue and a different glue, it doesn't work out for me. So this is what I chose to do, and it worked out pretty well. So while those are kind of curing, you can move on to actually building your frame for the bins. So remember this welcome sign? Well, I wound up taking that clover off of it because I can use it next year or down the road for another project. And then I cut it into 3. Now again, I did not record myself because I used some of the power tools, and they are in our workshop room, which has poor lighting, and right now it's such a mess that you literally can just walk through and do what you need to do and come out. I need to get rid of some baby things that I haven't been able to get rid of yet because of COVID and whatnot. We can't really, our thrift stores keep on closing and opening, so it's a little bit more difficult right now, so I'm just waiting for the summer. So then once these were cut up, I wanted them to look like wood. So I saw another YouTuber from the Mug Life. She used this tool, this wood grain tool, which I had never seen before. I don't know how maybe I have, but I didn't pay attention. But anyway, she used a wood grain tool. I'll show you what it looks like to do one of her furniture pieces, and I thought, wow, what a great idea. So then I kind of did a little bit of research on this tool and saw that you can use it on all sorts of things. So I got really excited and I ordered it off of Amazon, and I ordered a little while back, so I hadn't used it, but I thought this would be the perfect project to use it because it would give me that wood look. So I did see people use all sorts of different things to do the glaze, like to have that look, like they use stain and whatnot. So I wanted to use my Rust-Oleum decorative glaze in Java. Again, if you've watched my other videos, you see that I use this decorative glaze quite a bit. I use this and the Annie Sloan wax quite a bit, but the decorative glaze works really well for this because it is kind of like a stain. It's quite liquidy. So after I prepped these and sanded them down so that they wouldn't have any things hanging off, I went ahead to apply the wood grain look. I start off by just applying some of the decorative glaze, and I kind of play around with what I use to apply it. I use between a rag and this sponge, I kind of do a little bit of both, and I just apply a little bit of a heavier coat so I don't wipe off too much, so that way there's a little bit on top. You could use just a regular brush for painting. I didn't want to because the stain kind of wrecks them, so I didn't want to use that. So I used just this little brush that I had here. And then you take your tool, and what you want to do, you kind of want to rock it back and forth. And whenever, so if you pull straight and then rock, it gives a different grain look. And you kind of do that until you achieve the look that you're looking for. I didn't bother priming this or painting it or anything like that. I did see videos where they did that, but to me, I wanted to see what the easiest way to do this was and whether it would give me the look. I was going to try it, and then if it didn't work, I was going to paint it, but I love the way this looked. I just think that it gave such a nice, like deep wood kind of look that I was looking for, and really easy. And I know, like, these are some sort of chipboard or something, these welcome signs. They're not wood. So amazing. I love the way this turned out. And I did that with with all of the pieces. So again, I cut the board into three. The two longer pieces were my side pieces, and then the middle pieces, the middle part of the board I cut into four pieces. So those are the parts that are going to hold my little shelf together. And the length of the board itself was 24 inches. So each of the pieces was 6 inches long. And in case you guys were just wondering how I cut these pieces and how I got these pieces, I will go more into depth over the measurements in the next part after I finish painting them or staining them, because I want to kind of give you the measurements that I used. Of course, depending on what you use, where you are, how long your boards are, if you're using all Dollar Tree materials, it'll all depend. You may not have these measurements that I had, but at least it gives you an idea of where, if you know what size my bins were and how long my board was, then you can kind of scale it to what you're making. So again, when you're doing when you're using the tool, the more you rock back and forth, the more of a grainy look it'll have. So you want to kind of go straight, rock it a little bit, straight, rock it a little bit, and so on until you achieve the look that you want. And if it's not working out, you can add more stain and do it again. Just like with paint, it's very forgiving. Once I got the look I was going for and these boards had a little bit of time to dry, I went ahead and I just added a little bit of the glaze to the sides of the boards so that way you wouldn't see the lighter coloring of the chipboard. And again, I use that little brush to apply it, and then I chuck that brush, but actually I just take the top part off and I keep the little round dowel part because I can use it for other projects. So this took me a little while to kind of measure out and see how I wanted it to be. So basically what I did was I put these little pieces on the boards. I didn't, because I had to leave enough space for the bin to actually be able to hang. And I wanted to use it from this one board. You could obviously use two boards and have it be a little bit wider. Up to you, whatever you want it to kind of look like. I wanted this look. I wanted it to be a little bit smaller and kind of tight fitting. So I left 20 millimeters from each side, and that's where I put my the ends of my little small piece, if that makes sense. So I just did the very first piece. I made sure that it was nice and square. I hot glued it and was going to use wood glue and then switch to weld bond. So I did both and I glued them down that way. Then I clipped it again with those clips and I let it cure, and I did the same thing for the bottom part. And then I put the boards right up at the top so that way I didn't have to worry about measuring down. So just right up at the bottom and right up at the top. And then I let that cure, and then I just left 6 inches from the bottom of the top small piece. I left 6 inches, then I put my new piece, then I left another 6 inches, and then I put my new piece. There's a little bit less room on the bottom one, but that's okay because I wanted the bin to kind of overlap the bottom piece as well. So you'll see it looks symmetrical, but 6 inches between the three pieces from the top, and that should get you what you want. Again, you can do your own measurements depending on how tight you want them to each other, how much space you want at the bottom. It's totally up to you. This is what I wanted, and I loved the way it turned out. So here it is, all glued down. I wound up, like I said, using hot glue, and I tried wood glue with these pieces. We'll see how it works out. If it doesn't stick, or if you guys want a bit of a tighter fit, you could always use really small screws and screw in the pieces to the larger pieces. Again, I'm using it for floors. It'll be a decorative piece, so I don't need that super secure hold, but you totally could do it if you wanted to. So finally, here is the finished piece. I absolutely love the way it turned out. It looks like that enamel to me. I was going to add some labels. I did see in the other video where she added some of the chalkboard labels, and she just hot glued a mini magnet to the chalkboard label and then put the magnet on the inside of the tin so that way it would look like she could change them out. I was going to do that. I can't find my chalkboard tags, so I won't be doing that. But I may down the road. I like it without it. You could, if you wanted to label it, you could label it however you want. Again, that's up to you. But I love the way they turned out. Here's a picture of them with florals in them. Let me know what you think. If you think that I nailed that wood look and the enamel look, I absolutely love them. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay safe. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to come by on Sunday where I'm going to be doing a look for less video for you guys. Again, it'll be using Dollar Tree stuff. Thank you so much. Have a great day and stay safe.